Temple. Okay, I'll change everything.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Privrajikacharya Ashtotrashat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Privrajikacharya Ashtotrashat Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Gira Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Ananta Kurti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Girihari Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from 7th Canto, The Science of God, Chapter 7, What Prahlad Learned in the Womb, text number 53. Tato Hara Bhagavati Bhaktim Kuruta Tanava Atmapamyena Sarvatra Sarva Bhutatatmanishvare Tatoharo Bhagavati Bhaktim Kuruta Danavaha Atmapamyena Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare Tatoharo Bhagavati Bhaktim Kurata Danavaha Atmapamyena Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare Tatoharo Bhagavati Bhaktim Kuruta Danavaha Atmapamyena Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare. Please chant. Tatoharo Bhagavati Sarvabhutatmanishvare Tatoharo Bhagavati Bhaktim Kurta Danavaha Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare Tatoharo Bhagavati Bhaktim Kuruta Danavaha Atmapamyena Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare Tatoharo Bhagavati Bhaktim Kuruta Danavaha Atmapamyena Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare
Tatoharo Bhagavati.
Just one moment, Jabru. Go ahead, Jab.
You can do it. Tatoharo Bhagavati.
Tatoharo Bhagavati.
Bhaktim Kuruta Danavaha.
Bhaktim Kuruta Danavaha.
Atmapamyena Sarvatra.
Atmapamyena Sarvatra.
Sarvabhutatmanishvare.
Jai Krishna Prabhu, please go ahead.
Tatoharo Bhagavati
Bhagavati
Bhaktim Kurut Danavaha Atmaupamyena Sarvatra Sarvabhutatmanishvare.
Word to word meaning. Tata, therefore. Hara, unto Lord Hari. Bhagavati, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti, devotional service. Kuruta, execute. Danavaha, O my dear friends, O son of demons. sons of demons. Atma apamyena, just as one's own self. Sarvatra, everywhere. Sarvabhuta Atmani, who is situated as the soul and super soul of all living entities. Ishvare, unto the Supreme Lord, the controller. Translation and commentaries by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear friends, O sons of the demons, in the same favorable way that one sees himself and takes care of himself, take to the devotional service to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present everywhere as the super soul of all living entities. The translation. The word Atmanupamyena refers to thinking others to be like oneself. One can very intelligently conclude that without devotional service, without becoming Krishna conscious, one cannot be happy. Therefore, the duty of all devotees is to preach Krishna consciousness everywhere, all over the world, because all living entities without Krishna consciousness are suffering the pangs of material existence. To preach Krishna consciousness is the best welfare activity. Indeed, it is described by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu as para upakara, work for the true benefit of others. The activities of para upakara have been especially entrusted to those who have taken birth in India as human beings. Bharata bhumine haila manusya janma yara janma shartaka karikara para upakara. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ajalila, chapter 9, text 41. The entire world is suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu advised all human beings born in India to make their lives perfect by Krishna consciousness and then preach the gospel of Krishna consciousness all over the world so that others may become happy by executing the principles of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Śrī Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantekam Vancha Kopadruvesha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation one more time. My dear friends, O sons of the demons, in the same terrible way that one sees himself and takes care of himself, take to devotional service to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present everywhere as the super soul of all living entities. So we are coming to the end of chapter where Prahlad Maharaj was learning the instructions of Narada Muni, and those instructions were heard by him from when Narada Muni was teaching and imparting these instructions to his mother when he was in the womb. And to summarize these instructions, Narada Muni was teaching Prahlad Maharaj and all of us that regardless any occupation and material designation, the duty of all living entities in this planet is to take up the Krishna consciousness, the process of Bhakti Yoga. The text also says that we should take to devotional service to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And initially all the occupation of Varna and Ashram should lead to this perfection of life, to take up unmotivated and uninterrupted service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that service is not dependent on anything, and it is received by the mercy of the Lord. So I remember how Javita Prabhu often says that little motto that you learn the science, then you live by it, and then you give it to other people. That's learn it, live it, give it. That's pretty much the summary of Krishna consciousness movement, and also you can say this beautiful pastime, the instructions received by Prahlad Maharaj. And Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedic literatures, they describe that there are two general activities the activities of prayas and shreyas. And prayas means the beneficial, ultimate, immediate benefit that you experience from those activities. And usually the example given by children who like to play, and they play so much they become absorbed in a playing with their friends that they forget about whether they hungry, what is the material situation around them, whether it's cold or hot. They become neglectful or forgetful of it. And shreyas, those are the activities of the ultimate goal. They're beneficial and auspicious. And in this regard, shreyas would be the goal that devotees of Krishna are striving for, is to attain love of God. This would be the example of shreyas. And another example Srila Prabhupada gives about foodstuff. Sometimes we like certain foods, but they might be a little, you can say it's tasty, but a little unhealthy. It might cause some problems with digestion. So this is prayas. But shreyas is something that is nutritious and something that is healthy for us. Like that. And tastes good, yeah. So shreyas, usually the ultimate goal is something that takes time, and therefore people typically don't take up to it because we're used to getting the result right away. But the example given in Chaitanya Charitamrita is the creeper of Bhakti that is planted in our heart by initiation of Diksha, initiation of the spiritual master. And then we have to nourish that creeper and also guard that creeper by favorable activities regarding that creeper, and also protecting it from being devastated by unfavorable activities. And Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say that the goal of, at least the minimum goal of devotees is to attain the level of faith, but not just the faith of Shraddha, but the faith of Nishtha, the steadiness. And externally we see that sometimes there's so many things that can deviate us from this practice. There might be some economical problems or problems with the war, problems with our health. So therefore Nishtha means that we're so steady that we never lose faith in Krishna. We're fixed up. And a great example of this that came to my mind is when Srila Prabhupada visited Moscow. He was met one person, his name is Ananta Shanti. So he was teaching him about how to chant and how to offer bhoga to Krishna and understand the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. And he left the book there with him. And eventually he was very enthusiastic and took up the practice very seriously. And he was distributing the prasadam in the forms of flowers and food to people. And the movement was growing. There were so many people becoming interested that he caught an attention of the KGB. So he was arrested and put into the mental prison. And in that mental prison, he was drugged by the authorities. They would give him a lot of drugs. And he couldn't do anything but just to lay down in his bed. But even though he couldn't move or he couldn't chant out loud, because whenever they would hear him chanting, they would give him more drugs, he was still committing to the practice by chanting his rounds in his mind. And at the end, when he was released, he was glowing like no one else. He was very blissful, as he was always chanting.
Is that in that Salted Bread?
Yes, and it's mentioned there as well. But I've heard that in classes also. And so that is a great indication that we see advancement of devotees doesn't depend on their learning or their beauty or strength or their occupation. It depends on their attachment to the holy name. And that's also mentioned in Harinam Chintamani, that yes, the real advancement of devotees is how much they are attracted to chanting. And initially what we want is to remember Krishna at the end of life. And sometimes it happens that we practice throughout our life, and then those realizations and remembrance come at the last moment. We might not have so much of the realizations when we practice, but at the last moment it can happen. So we never know, and therefore the principle of Vedic culture is to prepare ourselves for the future life. We're always cautious about the future. And people in India, they believe in future life. They believe in reincarnation. They believe in life after death. And there's so many instances that teach them about that. The scripture is there. They're able to come to holy dhams, the holy places, and speak with sadhus. So they have so much advantage being born in a Bharatavarsha. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he used to love reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, so you mentioned that people will come and learn Bengali just so they can relish that beautiful, beautiful book. I met one person some time ago. It's a funny story. It was a guy and his mother, and so we were talking about the Bhagavad Gita, and I asked him what his name is, and he said, "My name is Chandan," and accidentally I called him Chandan. Went to shake his hand. He looked at me like, "What'd you call me?" I said, "No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I'm actually Chandan for saying that. Please forgive me." So that was funny. And so on the order of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, we see that this Krishna consciousness movement has started. So recommendation given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to be educated, to be trained in practice of Bhakti Yoga, and to also to give it to other people, especially if you were born in the holy land of India. And Krishnadas Kaviraj describes Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu as the gardener of the desire tree of Bhakti. He's the main character. He's the trunk of that tree, and he's the main branch. And from him, there are other branches that come in the form of Śrī Advaita and Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Then also there's grand disciples and grand disciples. There's branches, sub-branches, and twigs that come of it. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu planted that seed in Navadvip, and then he came to Jagannath Puri, and then it came to Vrindavan, and now we see that the fruit of that tree is being distributed all over the world. And Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu said that if I'm going to be the only one distributing that fruit, how can I distribute it to everyone? You got to help me. You got to help me. And at first he's asking, please help me, but then he demands that we all have to help him. So that's our duty of devotees, of followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because International Society of Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, our movement, is also one of the branches of that desire tree. And when the fruits become ripe, they become so nectarian. And within those fruits we see the perfection of life, love of God, attraction for hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna. And so therefore that fruit has so much value. So we should try to distribute these fruits. And then sometimes we have different inclinations or different tastes for those practices of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. But nevertheless, any one of those practices, if you have attraction for one of those practices, and you can through one of those practices attain perfection. Because sometimes devotees, they like to chant japas by themselves, or sometimes they like to participate in kirtan more. Sometimes they like to go on harinam, so distribute books. They like to cook for the deities or worship the deities. It's a matter of our taste. But ultimately, Srila Prabhupada, he said that we should learn how to do three things in Krishna consciousness. We should learn how to lead a kirtan, how to give a class, a nice Bhagavad Gita class, and how to prepare a nice meal for the deities. Everyone who is initiated should be able to train in these things. And even if we don't have so much of the talent and so much the material support, we can still go out and distribute these fruits of the desire tree just by simply asking people to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, engage them in that beautiful practice. We can just ask them to chant, and even though they might not accept, they will still hear and be benefited by it. And maybe they can come back home and tell their friends that someone approached me and told me to chant Hare Krishna. And that also would be a service that they would do, and the benefit is eternal. Srila Prabhupada said that whenever there's preaching, there's life, and our movement is a preaching movement. So preaching facilitates all other services very nicely. If we like to cook, or worship the deities, or clean the temple, or do anything else, if we try to go out on the streets and preach, this will help us to progress in our services much quicker, much better. Because when we go out to preach, we learn patience, we learn compassion. There's a nice text in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Kapila Dev is speaking to Devahuti about who is a sadhu. He says that sadhu has specific characteristics and qualifications. Titikshava karunika suhrida sarvadehinam ajatashatra sadhava sadhu bhushana. He says that the sadhu is very patient, he's also compassionate, he's the best friend of all living entities, he's friendly to all, he has no enemies, he's peaceful, and all of his characteristics are sublime. And a sadhu is not satisfied with his own liberation. He wants to help everyone else because he carries that love of God within his heart, so he sees that everyone is capable of receiving it. But of course, sometimes we meet some obstructions, some difficulties on Sankirtan when we go out. And therefore there's titikshava, there's patience. We have to tolerate this. And if we tolerate this, eventually the people who are favorable and people who are looking for these fruits, they will come. In Christianity, there's an example of Jesus Christ who was crucified by his own followers. Or there's also an example of Haridas Thakur, who was beaten in 22 marketplaces. So there's always some opposition. We live in a material world where there's dualities and demonic forces and natures. So therefore we meet opposition. It's quite natural. And by patience and by being compassionate and by having faith and having those characteristics, sublime characteristics, if we just go on and resemble those qualities or try to strive for those qualities, and then we can eventually help many people. I just received recently a message from one man that I met about a year ago, last summer. His name is Alex, and he texted me some days ago speaking like a devotee, like he was mentioning Krishna consciousness, Krishna, and he was just saying, appreciating that we had a friendly interaction, and he said that our friendship, he believes that it goes beyond space and time. He was appreciating the books and wishing me well on the path of Krishna consciousness, and I also replied to him and wished him the same. So we see that yes, people are really grateful, and definitely, if we try our best to distribute books, and if we're sincere, if we pray to really be an instrument and to help people, definitely Krishna will reciprocate with us, because Krishna always reciprocates with spiritual desires of his devotees. And I kept a story for this occasion. I wanted to say how this Chaitanya Charitamrita set was distributed by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, Krishna's mercy. It was actually a very interesting interaction I've had with two people. First, last week on Thursday, I met a group of Chinese people, and they stopped by my table. Actually, they didn't have an intention to speak or see any of these books. They just, I guess, were fixing their clothes or shoes or something like that. And one lady, she was looking at the table and she said, "Hare Krishna." I said, "Hare Krishna, how do you know about Hare Krishna? How do you know about us?" And she said, "Well, actually, I'm from China, but I was going to the temple for some time and I got initiated." I forgot who she mentioned she got initiated by. But nevertheless, she's initiated. And I asked her, what's your name? And she said, my name is Draupadi Devi Das. But unfortunately, I fell away from practice. I'm not chanting anymore. And I asked her, do you have our books? Do you have our Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita? And she said, I do have those books. So I pointed at a Krishna book and I offered the Krishna book to her. And she said, okay, I can take this one. And her family has already headed to museum, so she was in a hurry. She took a picture of my phone number and got back to me later, maybe 30 minutes later. And she has a company called Vaikuntha LLC. Vaikuntha LLC. So she didn't mention what it's about. That's how I know about this. The message came of Vaikuntha LLC and $108 donation. So I thought I can use this money to put into the distribution of whether Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita. And on Saturday when we went out, I brought a set of CC and I put it on my table on display. And then whoever I would meet, I'd tell them that this is a great biography of a monk, a renounced monk, a golden monk. And so one person, her name is Becky. She's in her 50s. She's American. She lives in San Diego, and she said, I've received some books some times ago from devotees. I have this Chant and Be Happy, SSR. I have the Higher Taste. And she's like, well, I'm curious about this one. She saw the pictures, and she was very curious. If he's dancing and standing like that, he was very happy. And before that, I offered Bhagavad Gita to her. And then I explained that, yes, this is Chaitanya Mahāprabhu. From him, actually, this kirtan and chanting started. He inaugurated this movement. And he's a golden renounced monk who is distributing this love of God freely, going everywhere, in every village and town. So if you get this Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll also receive that fruit of love of God. And she was curious. So she asked me to open the plastics, and see the printing, and see the text and pictures. And I showed it to her, and it's actually such a high quality paper over there that she was immediately attracted and by the pictures. So she was convinced. She took the CC, and because I had this little investment of $108, I only asked for $50, and we agreed that she would take it. And she said, I'm looking forward to reading this set. And also another story that happened to us with God. Oh yeah. This is funny. She was it was me, and then at the same location it was Govardhan and David. So it was so heavy for her to carry just the whole box. Her mother, maybe she's in her 80s, I think. She's like, I'll help you. So she took 4 books out of the box, and Becky carried the whole box, and then David, he saw them carrying this heavy box, so he thought, I'll help you, so he offered to help. And the car was parked far away, so he walked with them all the way back to the car. Great, they had great determination to get the set no matter what the weight.
Is she going to join us in our readings on Monday?
That would be a good idea. And yeah, and I also wanted to tell another story that is quite blissful. Also, I believe last week, me and Govardhan, I wanted to get some dye for my clothes. So we went to Michael's to get some dye. And just, I don't know, Krishna inspired me. I had some little cards, meditation cards in my hands. So I thought I'll just distribute them to everyone I see. So I was distributing this to people. And then I saw on the way out of the store, I saw one family. It was a son, old elderly son with his mother. And we passed by them, and they looked at us with kind of amusement because Govardhan was wearing dhoti and kurta. I wasn't wearing them. But anyway, so they were kind of astonished. And then we went back to the car, and I told Govardhan we should drive by them and give them a card. And Govardhan said, nah, they're too old. They're not going to come to the temple. And I thought, well, we should still do it. So we drove to them and we handed them a card out of the window. And they said something like, yeah, you guys are glowing. Do you remember what they say? You guys look so amazing. Are you guys Hare Krishna? And we say, yeah, we Hare Krishna. So we told them about the programs we have and everything like that. And so it turns out later, a couple of days later, I'm sitting by the Krishna lounge reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and someone comes in, and they're kind of a little scared and not knowing what to do. They come, yeah, they not to the patio, but on a different side of the Krishna lounge, the back side. And they're like, "Excuse me, can we ask you a question?" I said, "Of course, sure, yeah." And they tell me, "We just received this little card from the parking lot by the Michaels. Do you know who gave it to us? Is this the right place?" I told them yes. Yeah. So it's their names are Tim and Sylvia. And they were really curious, especially Tim. He was really curious. Maybe he's also in his 50s. He's really curious about Bhagavad Gita and Hinduism. I told him we're not Hindus. And told a little bit about the backstory of Bhagavad Gita and answered these nice questions. He was really, really curious, and he wanted to participate in kirtan meditation. It was something that he wants to read and understand. He also wanted to read Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. And he told me, "Do I need to order it online, or you happen to have one here?" I said, "Of course we have one here." So I gave him a Bhagavad Gita, and I think JSD, Journey of Self-Discovery, and Chena Be Happy. So he took him and he said, "I'm definitely going to come back and participate in one of your gatherings. I'm very, very curious about what you guys practice." So now I'll just conclude with this, that if we go out and distribute books, we, as I mentioned, need to have qualities of a sadhu, at least aspire to have those qualities. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami explains that to become attracted to hearing and to acting in Krishna consciousness, hearing the message of Vasudeva, we just need to approach a genuine sadhu and hear from him. Shushoshu Shadadanasya Vasudeva Katarvachi. Sutta Goswami says, Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana. He says that just by approaching and by hearing, by serving this sadhu, we gain the affinity to be attracted to hearing for the Katarvuchi of the message of Vasudeva. So in our practice, in our tradition, we have many of these opportunities. We have sadhus visit our temple and live in our temple here, and also when we go to holy dhams, we also have that opportunity. So let's take that opportunity and advance in spiritual life, distribute this knowledge as it is recommended by our Acharya, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your attention. Are there any questions or comments or corrections, additions?
Hare Krishna. No corrections. Thank you. So can you give us a few of your favorite verses from slokas from the Bhagavad Gita? Or one or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like. Of course, there's in every chapter something that you can recite, and it's very beautiful. But maybe I'll say one of this. Janma karma chame devyam evami vetitattvata takadeham punarjanma naiti mamati sorjana. That if you just understand the janma and karma, birth and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for what purpose does he come here, and what are his transcendental activities, and again, understanding this come from hearing from a sadhu, then you don't have to take birth again in this material creation. You can live on a planet of Krishna and understand, your spiritual identity, your nature in service to Krishna. So I guess I'd say this text, and of course this Sarvasya Chaham Redisani Vishta, chapter number 15, that from Krishna come remembrance and knowledge and forgetfulness. And Sarva Dharma Parityaja Mamakam Sharanam Vraja. That text also is important. So there's many texts. Tesham Satatam Yuktanam Bhajatam Piripurvakam. Many texts in Bhagavad Gita that help us to stay in conviction and faith to our spiritual master and Krishna. What about you? What would you say your favorite verse is?
Chapter 6, Sloka 6. I'll let you say it.
I guess it's a famous one for sure on Sankirtan. For he must conquer the mind, this text. People can relate to that text easily. Chirapu?
I have a few editorial comments. Janma karma cha me divyam. Now, practically every time I did some research on this because that word tatvata is not in the translation. And whereas Prabhupada didn't add it there, whenever he quoted this verse quite often, and he almost always explained that you have to understand the birth and activities of Krishna in truth, because especially, you find in India, when he came from India, a lot of people misunderstand Krishna. And they tend to have sentimental things or various misunderstandings. So that word, truth, that we're going to try, I'm campaigning to have it, put it into the translation. One who understands in truth the birth and activities of Krishna doesn't come back again. The other thing, you quoted that thing about one who has life, he can preach. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure Prabhupada was quoting Bhaktisiddhanta on that. So just to remember that he's the origin of that one who has life, he can preach.
Mm. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
It's a minor point, but it's...
It's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati who said that. One who has life should preach, have to preach. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Grantar Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.